Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dark Crossroads. This is your host, Roxanne Fletcher. If you're new, welcome. If you're not new, thank you for coming back and hanging out. So today we're going to be doing stuff a little bit different. Normally on these episodes, I research a topic, mostly a true crime case, cold case, or missing persons case, or any case suggestion that is sent into me. I'll cover that. But I wanted to keep things a little light today. I'm doing a lot of research for an upcoming case. So I just wanted to add in some laughs. So today we're going to be just reading some dumb criminal stories, dumb criminal cases, and I hope you guys like it. If you know any dumb cases that you want to be read from your state or that you know of, email it to me, darkcrossroadspodcast@gmail.com. I love to hear all the stories that you guys have. Also, if you're new here, we have an episode every week on top of our true crime cases that we cover, which is called Creepy Corner. And this is true crime or paranormal stories that are your own or are your friends. You can also just send in any story that you want read on the podcast, and it will be read on Creepy Corner. With that said, please leave out any names that you don't want read, or I can change the names for you, but leave out any information that you don't want on the podcast. So if you want to send in your story, please send that also to darkcrossroadspodcast@gmail.com. And you can also find us on social media to send it to. Okay, so our first case comes out of Franklin County, Ohio. I know many of us, me included, have posted things on social media that later on we have regretted doing. Not everybody's into social media. I have a lot of friends and family that actually avoid it, and sometimes so do I. But throughout our lifespan, we do end up falling into the hole of Facebook, Instagram, and we post stuff that later on we look back and we question our sanity. For some, this might have resulted in relatives or friends being hurt or causing conflict. But in the case that we're covering today, an Ohio man is facing serious consequences after posting on Facebook, which this post ended up landing him in handcuffs. Franklin County Sheriff Zach Scott and Dustin Rickers, 28, posted a 12-second video on a personal Facebook page with no privacy setting of him taking a swig of alcohol while driving behind the wheel of a car. He looks into the camera that he's videotaping himself with while music plays in the background. He raises his eyebrows, takes a swig from a partially covered bottle. He doesn't say anything, and as the clip ends, the camera is flipped around to show his hand with only one finger raised to guide the steering wheel as a wiper moves across the vehicle's windshield. Scott stated, "You've got a distracted driver and a drunk driver, just exponentially causing danger wherever he went." A Facebook friend comments, "Dude, really?" Rickers responds, "I am a good driver, don't worry," and goes on to comment, "I've got one finger on the steering wheel Facebooking while it's raining. SMH, I am good. I am a pro." Ohio's family defends his actions. Scott said, "We need to remember that Rickers is typing all of this while he's also driving and drinking. He's got his hands full when he's trying to drive," Scott said. He's drinking and he's paying attention to his phone. We are, I think, very fortunate that this didn't end with some type of tragedy." A tipster ends up warning deputies that Rickers was drinking and driving. Deputies tracked the suspect's car down and pulled him over near State Route 665 and Hibbs Road. The suspect ends up pleading not guilty Tuesday in Franklin County Municipal Court on 5 misdemeanor charges, including operating a vehicle under the influence of alcohol or drugs and having an open container in a vehicle. Scott said that Rickers' Facebook post is evidence that could help prove these charges. "There's no privacy issues going on here," Scott said. "He posted, he confessed, and he gave us all the evidence that we needed." But Rickers' family says people shouldn't be quick to judge people, saying he recently suffered an unspeakable tragedy. "He's really smart, he's just going through a lot right now," said Rickers' girlfriend. "It's too much for him to handle." Rickards has faced OVI charges twice before, in 2007 and 2011. Court records indicate Rickards pleading guilty earlier this year in a separate impaired driving case stemming from a September 2014 stop by state troopers. Our next one comes from Buffalo, New York, and there is pictures of what I'm about to talk about on the internet, so you can just Google it and find it. It's pretty funny to look at. So deputies with the Erie County Sheriff's Office end up pulling over a woman who was 28 years old on a Wednesday, driving without a front license plate and only one on the back that was clearly fake. Once they had stopped her, deputies discovered that she was operating the vehicle with a suspended registration and no insurance. The woman was arrested and charged with possessing a forged instrument, which was a felony. She's also facing a misdemeanor count of operating a vehicle with a suspended registration and 3 vehicle and traffic infractions. The fake plate was taken into evidence and bail has been set for $400. Now, I'm just going to describe this license plate that this woman drew. So she basically took a rectangular piece of cardboard, painted the whole thing orange, painted kind of like a little archway at the top of blue, wrote New York in tiny little letters in orange over the blue. And then she just, in the big orange spot with paint, wrote FYG and then like an arrow thing and then 3925. And then on the bottom in like little like kindergarten writing wrote Empire State. You can totally tell that this thing is fake. The back of it is the cardboard just like peeling basically. I mean, props to her. She tried. She could have probably tried a little bit harder, but yeah, I look it up because it's pretty funny to look at. So do you guys remember Jared? Jared from Subway. His famous diet, his commercials, the extreme weight loss that he was able to achieve after basically eating Subway for a very long period of time. Well, I think that whole thing gave a lot of people some false hope. And in this case, this is one person. In Hueytown, Alabama, there was a man, 18 years old, who was arrested on a Friday night after he allegedly robbed 4 Subway restaurants over 4 days. He stated to the detective that he had attempted the Jared diet and it didn't work for him. The police chief at the time said he felt like he should get his money back. So he went on his robbing rampage. Subway spokesman Jared Fogle lost 245 pounds in 1 year after eating a steady diet of Subway sandwiches. Police say when the focus on footlongs didn't pay off for this, the one that's robbing all these places, he targeted sandwich artists across the Birmingham area. My first reaction to that is that it is a crazy thing to say, but there has to be something because all he did was rob Subways. This was the police chief at the time. The man, who weighed over 200 pounds, is now behind bars on a $250,000 bond at Jefferson County Jail. The alleged jilted dieter may have missed the part of the Subway commercial that states Jared believes in an active lifestyle, including a lot of walking, or something about results may vary. The man was nabbed after surveillance video was posted on the Hueytown Police Department's Facebook page. In the video, he can be seen walking into a Subway restaurant, pulling out a gun, and demanding that employees open the cash register. The footage was viewed by 150,000 people in less than 24 hours. A man who ends up stealing a car eventually ends up crashing it into a ditch. He tries to flag down some help, but it ends up being the wrong person to ask for that help. The man, 40 years old, of Richmond, Minnesota, unwittingly asked an off-duty sheriff's deputy to help him pull the vehicle out of a ditch along Benton County Road 4 west of Foley, Minnesota. The deputy, who came upon the stranded motorist at 4:45 a.m. Tuesday while he was on his way home, noticed that the vehicle in the ditch matched the description of one that was reported stolen hours earlier in St. Cloud. The deputy radioed to dispatchers, who confirmed the man was driving a stolen car. The deputy arrested the man and found that he was in possession of a white crystal substance also. He ended up testing positive for methamphetamine and was taken to the Benton County Jail and charged with being in possession of controlled substance and possession of a stolen motor vehicle. This next story is of one where the police had to use vegetable oil to free a man who said that he became trapped in the vent of a grocery store when he tried to rob it. Adam, 19 years old, was being held on $10,000 bail Friday on charges including burglary and criminal mischief. Authorities said that he was found Tuesday night in the shaft between the ceiling and the roof of the store after someone heard him screaming for help. Emergency workers cut Cooper's sweatshirt away, poured vegetable oil taken from a store shelf down the shaft, and handed him a rope. 4 men on the roof then pulled him out. He was trapped for at least an hour. It was stated he's really lucky someone heard him yelling, otherwise we probably would have been removing a corpse the next morning. Earlier that day, he had been on a team that cleaned the store's vent. He reportedly told police he was able to move through the vent while he was working, so he figured he could use it to rob the store later. One of a criminal's main aims is to find the perfect spot in which to execute their robbery, and in this case, that's what this criminal tried to do. Instead of finding the right house to rob, though, this man invaded a house full of police officers, and that's how he handed over himself to the police without any trouble. The man, that was from Abington, Northampton, entered the house at night that was already burgled earlier that night. So there were police officers for investigation purposes, and at the same time, this man ended up trying to break into that house. Of course, he tried to run immediately, but it was not that easy as he was caught at the spot. The burglary was unsuccessful, and from that time, he comes as one of the world's most dumbest criminals. Before entering the police house, he tried to invade another house, but unsuccessfully, and left marks of his blood on the windowsill. So the cops easily linked him to that case also, and now you can imagine the face of the dumbest criminal at the time of catching up by the cops. This next story comes from a man who woke up one day and said to himself, "I'm gonna go rob a bank." So he packs up his gun and a bag for all the money, and he drives on down to the bank. He walks up to the employee at the counter and he tells them, "Fill the bag up with all of your cash." He goes to hand over the bag for them to fill it, but instead of handing them the bag, he hands them the gun in his hand that he's robbing the bank with. He was probably under a lot of stress and pressure, maybe anxiety, because this could have been his first time, robbing a bank. You never know. So the situation continues, and he finally realizes his mistake, but at that time, it is too late for him. Unlike the robber, the employee at the bank was in full presence of mind, and he ends up taking this opportunity into full advantage, and he ends up pointing the gun at the robber's face. Luckily, the robber ends up running away, not getting any of the money he wanted, but he did not get away empty-handed as he ends up trying to steal a bicycle from one of the employees at the bank. So this next story comes from a robber who was 18 years old at the time of his robbery, and he decided he was going to invade a muffler shop that was located in Chicago, Illinois, where he demanded money by showing a gun to the staff. The staff of the shop obviously were threatened, but there was a problem. They could not give him any money. The manager was not there at the time, and all the money was in a safe that was locked and only managers could open it. The robber, being brilliant and smart and as great as he thought he was, he decided to leave his cell phone number so when the manager comes back, the staff could just call him and he could come back and pick up his money. But he didn't realize that the shop was going to eventually contact the police and inform them of everything that had happened. Police end up asking the staff to call the robber back and say that the manager is there and now you can come, get your money. The robber obviously was like, "Holy crap, this is awesome. I'm going to go there, get my money. It's going to be great." He drives back to the muffler shop where police are obviously sitting and waiting for him. He tries to run, There was a shootout, and in the end, he was eventually arrested. This next story is another bank robbery story. So these two would-be robbers end up deciding that they're going to call in before pulling off a heist at a People's Bank in Fairfield, Connecticut. The robber calls in advance to the branch and demanded the money be ready. He also mentioned that there would be a bloodbath if his demands were not met. The employee who received the call hung up immediately and called 911. The bank went under lockdown, and one of the caller's accomplices was already inside of the bank at this time. The accomplice handed over a note to the teller while the employee was on a call with the police. The police end up arresting both of them without much of an incident. One was a juvenile and the other was a 27-year-old. Both were charged with first-degree robbery and threatening bodily harm. The police officers reported that they had a really good laugh on the calling ahead aspect of the robbery. This next story is of two men who were caught napping after a crime spree of robbing $200,000. The suspects were aged 29 and 33 and were found passed out behind the wheel in two different locations with stolen vehicles and goods. Both of them were from Grand Prairie, Alberta, Canada, and they worked together breaking into several businesses from Grand Prairie to Dawson Creek. A Dawson Creek spokesperson said to the media that they were not the world's brightest criminals after they were found passed out behind the wheel with the stolen goods. These criminals allegedly stole a pickup valued at around $50,000 in Grand Prairie. They then started stealing money from laundromat machines. Dawson Creek RCMP was alerted that the thieves were heading in their direction. The police suspect that they broke into almost 15 vehicles, smashed windows, and grabbed whatever they could grab. After both of them were found, the stolen $200,000 worth of property was also recovered. There were over 160 items, and the police ended up reporting that the entire vehicle was full of stolen goods, leaving space only for the driver. When it comes to robbery, nothing should be left behind. I mean, that's a cardinal rule that we learn in all true crime documentaries and TV shows. But this Boston robber was caught after accidentally leaving a birth certificate and a note from his mother at the crime scene. He was charged for snatching a woman's wallet and booked for unarmed robbery. The alleged robbery victim said that she was walking through the schoolyard in the Field Corner train station in Dorchester when the robber approached her from behind. He grabbed her bag, which contained her ID and $40 in cash. In the process of grabbing her bag, the criminal drops two bags himself that had clothes and a pair of sneakers. On the top of one of the bags was a letter that his mother had written to him and his birth certificate. Police were able to find the man matching the description within hours. He was found just a block away. Upon finding him, he ends up trying to lie to police and say that his name is John Foisey, and he kept confirming that the certificate was not his. He was fined $10,000 in cash, and bail was set at $500. This next story comes from a man who tried to pull off a gun store robbery with a baseball bat. The suspect ended up taking orders from the store manager, who held him at gunpoint until police eventually arrived. The Portland authorities reported that he was so underarmed, he ended up on the ground. The robber proceeded to smash the glass at the display case at discount gun sales and took a handgun from the display to step up his weaponry. The weapons store manager drew his handgun and ordered the suspect to drop the bat, his gun, and the 9-inch knife that he carried. Washington County officers responded to the call from the store and found that the suspect was on the floor when they arrived at the scene. The suspect was taking orders from the store manager once he realized that his plan was not working out as expected. He ended up being held in Washington County, Oregon jail with $250,000 set as bond, and he was charged with first-degree robbery along with charges for unlawful possession of a firearm. A U.S. fugitive sent the police a selfie after he found out that his mugshot looked terrible. The suspect was suspected of vandalism and arson. He has not been responding to the summons, and he is a person of interest for the Lima, Ohio Police Department. He found that his mugshot was so unflattering that he sent a selfie of himself to the police department of Lima. He wrote, Here's a better photo. That one that you guys have is terrible. Police immediately posted the picture on their Facebook page and asked to help him locate him. The police wrote in the post that this was the photo sent to them by the suspect. The department also thanked him for being helpful and asked him to help them by coming and speaking about the charges against him. He was wanted for several cases, and he had a warrant for his failure to appear in court as directed in the summons. The suspect immediately gained media attention and went on air with an Ohio radio station saying that the police department did him wrong by posting the mugshot all over the place, and that was the reason why he sent his selfie. This next one is a story of a desperate man. A groom ends up robbing a bank the day before his wedding to pay for the ring and the venue. Cops end up charging the 36-year-old suspect with aggravated robbery, and the wedding was obviously canceled. In other relationship troubles, a guy in Oklahoma stole a Pepsi truck to drive to the airport and catch his girlfriend before she left him. But instead of making it, he ended up rear-ending an empty school bus and got arrested. This next story is of a man who I personally think needs anger management classes. A man took an axe to his family's car because he thought his wife had damaged his action figures. He also destroyed their TV, their laptop, and when the cops got on scene, the axe was still sticking out of the windshield of their car. In other family drama crime this year, a 13-year-old boy stabbed his older brother in the arm before a family road trip because, quote, "I'd rather be in jail than spend 8 hours in the car with him." And also, a guy in Ohio attacked his brother for not supporting his dream to audition for America's Got Talent. Alright, so this next story, I honestly can't blame her, and every time I go to this store, I expect to see this. So a woman ended up getting banned from Walmart, surprisingly, for riding a motorized cart while drinking wine out of a Pringles can. After this event, there was a person on Etsy selling Pringle can wine tumblers. And in other Walmart nonsense, a drunk woman in Pennsylvania walked into a Walmart in July, peed on the potatoes, and then left. Why? To this next story, all I have to say is, he tried. So a drunk driver tried to cover the smell of alcohol on his breath by spraying Axe body spray into his mouth. During this, he encountered 3 problems. Problem 1, the cop saw him do it. Problem 2, there were empty beer cans all over his car. Problem 3, Axe body spray doesn't hide the smell of alcohol on your breath, and it actually has alcohol in it. Okay, so this next string of crimes is basically crimes that involve famous names or famous people. So a guy named Samuel L. Jackson got a DUI and unleashed a string of profanities. If he's trying to live up to his name, he's doing a heck of a job. Also, a guy named Henry Ford was wanted for stealing cars in Detroit. A guy named Kevin Bacon crashed into a cop car while watching Saved by the Bell on his phone. A guy named Luke Skywalker got in trouble with the law again and got another shout out from Mark Hamill. And another guy named Luke with the middle name Skywalker recently got arrested for drugs in Texas. A white guy in Tennessee named Tupac Shakur got caught with drugs and pulled a knife on a cop. At one point in March, 2 guys named Charlie Brown and Elvis Presley were both facing charges. This next story is absolutely crazy to me because if you're going to commit a crime such as this, why? Alright, hear me out. Man gets away with homicide, then tattoos cold case clues onto his chest. If you're getting away with homicide, why would you permanently ink the clues to this case onto you? I don't know. Okay, so LA County Sheriff's Department Sergeant Kevin Lloyd was flipping through photographs of tattooed gang members and stumbled upon some very permanent evidence on Anthony Garcia, a Pico Rivera member found responsible for a 2004 unsolved liquor store case. Rivera had key details of the scene that were tattooed onto his chest, including the Christmas lights that lined the roof of the liquor store, the direction the victim, John Wara's body fell, and a distinctive streetlight. The ink across his chest probably didn't help his case, and he was eventually sentenced to 65 years in prison. The more of these stories that I'm reading, the more I'm realizing how and why these people end up where they are. So this one's titled The GPS Genius. Don't attempt a breaking and entering while wearing a GPS tracking anklet given to you by the police department. You won't get away with it. James Wombles, a Riverside, Ohio native, allegedly committed several holdups. He was already under police surveillance due to a previous stolen property charge. Reportedly, he didn't realize that his GPS anklet would prevent him from slipping away unnoticed from another scene of unlawful activity. So I don't know if it's this case, but there's either this one or a similar one that I have seen videos popping up on like TikTok and Facebook of this actual incident from the police, like video body cams. Sorry, couldn't get that out. So this title is Woman Uses Craigslist to Hire a Hitman. Anne Marie Lynn Scott posted a Craigslist ad for some general freelance work before explaining her true intentions to the responding individuals. She wanted them to terminate her lover's wife in California. Lynn Scott offered $5,000 for the hit, provided the woman's name and her work address, and described successful candidates as silent assassins, according to agents in court documents. Agents apprehended Lynn Scott, who used the alias Marie, at her home in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Butte County authorities worked with the FBI to identify the victim and her husband. This one is a story that shows you that you should probably think before you speak sometimes. So, a man ends up defending himself in court and unwittingly admits his faults. Back in 1985, Dennis Newton was on trial in a district court for the armed robbery of a convenience store when he fired his lawyer and decided that he was going to represent himself. Assistant District Attorney Larry Jones said that Newton, then the age of 47, was doing a pretty good job at defending himself until the store manager had testified that Newton was indeed the person that robbed the convenience store. Newton ends up jumping up and accusing the woman of lying and saying, "I should have blown your effing head off." He then pauses and says, "If I had been the one that was there." The jury only took 20 minutes to convict Newton and recommended a 30-year sentence. This next story happened in early 2015, and it was two young men who were driving from California to Montana with about 9 kilograms or 20 pounds of marijuana in their car. As they crossed the Nevada-Idaho border, the pair became convinced that they were being followed by policemen and civilian cars. The two grew extremely paranoid, and they decided to pull over and call the police department. When the 911 dispatcher answered, one of the men said, "Hi, we're the two dumbasses that got caught trying to bring some stuff through your border. All of your cops are just driving around us like a bunch of jackwagons, and I'd just like for you guys to end it." The dispatcher was obviously bewildered, as no police were following any young men. However, she noted their location and sent a police car to get them. The officers arrived to find the two men with their hands on their heads and the marijuana tied up in a garbage bag on the side of the road. The pair were arrested and both tested positive for marijuana. They were eventually charged with felony drug trafficking. One of them was sentenced to 30 days in jail. However, the other one, who tested positive for marijuana, cocaine, and oxycodone on his sentencing day, received 1.5 to 8 years in prison. I've seen a lot of these popping up everywhere, but have any of you ever gone to one of those escape rooms where you have to find your way out? Well, this case involves one of those. In mid-2018 in Vancouver, Washington, a man broke into an escape room and grabbed a remote control, a smartphone, and a beer. Then he sat down, drank the beer, ate a burrito that he had brought with him, After he finished his breakfast, he tried to leave the room through the same door that he had entered. However, he had broken the doorknob when he busted into the room, and the door would not open. He tried to get out of the escape room's front door, but he couldn't figure out how to open the lock. Fearing that he was trapped, he obviously started to panic. He grabbed the business phone and dialed 911. He told the operator that he was calling from the escape room because his home was being burglarized. While he was waiting for the police, he managed to open the damaged door. He ran outside right into the police officer. He was arrested and charged with second-degree robbery. This next story happened in 2011. A man broke into a woman's home in Portland. He went into her bathroom and decided he was going to take a shower. While he was showering, he heard the homeowner return. He feared that she might own guns, so he ends up locking the bathroom door, grabs his phone, and calls the police. He confessed to breaking into her home and begged them to help him. The homeowner heard his voice, and she told her daughter to leave the house. She ends up calling her 2 German shepherds to her, and the trio went to confront the man. She asked him, "Why are you in my house taking a shower?" He responds, "I broke in, I was kidnapped." She went outside and called the police. They end up arriving and arresting the man who broke in. Repeating his story, he claimed that a group of men had kidnapped him and put him in the bathroom. Police did not believe the story, and he was eventually charged with a misdemeanor for criminal trespassing. This next story is of a man who spent New Year's Eve in 2017 drinking and driving around Florida. He decided to call 911 and turn himself in. He told the dispatcher that he had been driving drunk all night long, trying to get pulled over. He added that he was driving on the wrong side of the road and had no idea where he was. The dispatcher urged him to pull over, so he decided to stop and find something to eat. He hung up on the dispatcher and parked his car in the middle of the road. Officers quickly tracked him down and gave him a sobriety test, which he promptly failed. He told the policeman that he had drunk 3 or 4 beers, swallowed meth, and only slept 4 hours in the past 4 days. He was arrested and charged with driving under the influence, driving on the wrong side of the road, and driving without wearing a seatbelt. This one is another story from 2017. A couple weeks before Christmas, a man decided to rob Lori's Little Shack, a California bar where he was a regular customer. Inspired by St. Nick, the man chose to enter the business through the chimney. He snuck onto the roof, slipped into the chimney's opening, which was less than 46 centimeters or 18 inches wide, and he slowly slid down the flue. Around halfway down, he hit a dead end. The pipe took a 90-degree corner, and it was impossible for him to follow it. He tried to climb out of the chimney, but he could barely move. He managed to wiggle just enough to reach his cell phone and call for help. Firefighters arrived and used a specialized equipment to free him. He emerged from the chimney covered in soot, but physically uninjured. Police arrested him, and he was charged with 1 count of burglary. The story comes from 2011. A man was driving through a Walmart parking lot in Canton, Ohio, when he spotted a purse sitting in a shopping cart. He pulled his hood over his head and slowly rolled forward. He reached his hand out of the car window and grabbed the handbag. The owner ends up grabbing her purse, and the man drags her several feet before she had to let go. Another man that was sitting in the parking lot had been watching this guy and thought that he looked suspicious. After the man had stole the purse, the guy who was watching him decided he was going to follow him. He hopped into his snowplow, called 911, and chased the burglar for 30 minutes. The burglar eventually noticed what the snowplow driver was doing, and he called 911 to report that he was being followed. He told dispatcher that he must have been mistaken for the purse snatcher. The dispatcher told him to go back to the parking lot where he was arrested and charged with robbery and theft. He was also sentenced to 9 years in prison. This next story comes from early 2011 when a man decided to break into a Delaware house that had been unoccupied since it was damaged by a storm. He had broken into the home once before and was certain that he could easily do it again. He entered through a window in the house and headed straight for the liquor cabinet. He spent the next 3 days in a booze-filled stupor as he downed 3 bottles of gin and 2 bottles of whiskey. After he had cleaned out the liquor cabinet, he decided to leave the house. he discovered that the homeowner had changed the locks since his last burglary. A key was now required to open the door, even from the inside. He was too drunk to deal with the locks or to climb out of the window he had broken into. So he called 911 for help. Officers arrived and spoke with him through a cracked window. They quickly realized that he was not the homeowner. He was taken to a hospital to sober up and then was charged with burglary. In 2006, Michigan police officer Edward Sanchez took marijuana from a criminal suspect and decided to hide it in his vehicle. After retrieving the pot from his car later that evening, him and his wife decided to bake it into brownies. Then they went ahead and ate the entire batch of brownies. Sanchez, who had smoked pot before, had never eaten pot brownies. He began to feel extremely strange. He started to worry that the pot had been laced with something, and he ended up calling 911. Sanchez told an emergency dispatcher that he thought he and his wife were overdosing on marijuana. He ends up stating, "I think we're dying. We made brownies, and I think we're dead. I really do." He gave the dispatcher his address and repeatedly asked if the ambulance was coming. He told the dispatcher, "Time is going by really, really slow." Later, Sanchez admitted that he had stolen drugs before, including cocaine, and that his wife had used that for a 3-week binge. Neither Sanchez nor his wife were charged with any crime. However, he did resign from the police department. Alright guys, so thanks for hanging out again today. I hope that you liked this episode. I just wanted to try something different and keep it light this week. We'll get back to the norm next week, don't worry. And don't forget to visit our website at www.darkcrossroadspodcast.com. That website has everything that goes with our episodes. You can find us on all social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, etc. On Facebook, there is a link to Linktree, which when you go there is a link to our subscription page. So if you guys feel inclined to donate to the podcast, you can do a one-time donation or join the monthly subscription. And with that, you will get promo codes to the store that is opening soon, discounts, exclusive content that is not included in the episode, extra episodes, and much more. So if you're able to, every little cent helps. And if you are willing to help us in a free way, you can like, share, rate, review wherever you're listening to this. Every little thing helps us, and just spreading the word is a huge way to support us. So if you like us and you want some more, please do that. And with that said, don't forget to be weird, stay different, and don't trust anyone, and keep on creeping on. Alright, we'll see you guys later. Bye. Dark Crossroads Podcast is brought to you by Problem Wildlife. Problem Wildlife serves Western Massachusetts and has been humanely protecting your house and family from unwanted pests for over 20 years. Take back your space with an animal control service that you can trust. They are family-owned, fully licensed, and are knowledgeable and dependable. To find out more about their services, simply visit their website at www.problemwildliferemoval.com. Again, that's www.problemwildliferemoval.com. And the website will also be included in our show notes.